Now, Erik Menendez can appeal this decision, and the governor still has 30 days to decide if he wants to intervene.
Yeah, so still a lot happening here. Right now, we want to bring in criminal defense attorney David Shapiro joining us here this morning. David, thank you for waking up early. You know, we were talking about this. First of all, your reaction to what happened, and also, too, the likelihood that oftentimes when convicted killers go for parole, it's not very often you see them get that granted the first time.
Absolutely. Well, first off, thanks so much for having me. It's good to be back. Very surprised because we heard so much that so many people thought this was a foregone conclusion, that Erik was going to go first, Erik was going to get paroled, and then we sort of knew the writing on the wall for Lyle's parole hearing today. So very surprised with some of the logic behind the parole board's decision in denying Erik. To answer your other part of the question, though, pretty uncommon to actually get paroled the first time out. What was encouraging in this situation is the parole board set Erik's new date for 3 years, which is as soon as they possibly could set it, which, if there is a silver lining in all this, that certainly will be it.
What are some of the differences then between Erik's case and Lyle's case that maybe might give us some clues about how the board will rule today?
Sure. A couple of things. First is I don't expect the ruling to be much, if any, different than what we heard yesterday. But what we know about the differences between the brothers is that Lyle was older than Erik. It was purported that Lyle was more of the ringleader of this. I think Erik was 18, no more than 19 years old max at the time of these murders. And then what we're going to hear today, we may very well hear a lot of different comparisons or compare and contrasting with their records in prison. We heard a lot more than we might have ever heard before yesterday as relates to Erik's behavior in prison, some dust-ups that he's had that ultimately were thrown out in front of everyone to see and hear yesterday. And we're going to hear that about Lyle. My understanding is that Lyle actually had a better record in custody, but I don't think it'll necessarily move the needle, especially since they've already made the decision on Erik yesterday.
What does the length of the hearing say? Because typically these types of hearings don't take as long as what happened yesterday. Yeah,
the length of the hearing was long. It was abnormal. But again, for 36 years, nothing about this case has been normal. Nothing about this case has been traditional. Nothing about this case has been, in many ways, what we could expect. So the fact that this went the better part of a day for one person doesn't surprise me at all, given the attention, given the depth of the attention this case has gotten for the better part of the last 4 decades.
Assuming that Lyle's ruling today is the same as what happened to Erik yesterday, what happens then over the next 3 years as they wait for their next parole? Do we see more court cases, more appeals for clemency, or do we just wait now until the next hearing?
Sure, good question. There's a couple of ways that they could possibly get out before ultimately being paroled. We still have 3 total ways. One was the parole, right? For Erik and likely for Lyle, we're talking 3 years at least until they're eligible again. They should be on their best behavior times 100 between now and then, because the parole board in many ways gave a blueprint on basically, hey, you want to impress us to give you a better chance to get out as relates to Erik yesterday, this is what you need to do. There's still the habeas petition, which is still ongoing, basically saying, hey, there's certain pieces of evidence that had we presented that back in the day, a different outcome could have potentially happened, so we need a new trial. That's one avenue. And there's still the clemency petition. The issue is whether or not Governor Newsom is going to have really any input or volunteer himself into this any more than he already has.
All right, so much happening with this case, a case that has fascinated the country for decades. David Shapiro, thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.